Welcome to this video on Build Your Own Viewer, using Game Engine technology to easily share your CAD projects. My name's Chris Kiak, and you can visit my website at chriskiak.com or bimquest.com. You can also visit any of my social media pages that you see listed here. Now, what are you going to need for today? You're going to need Unity 3D version 5.5 or newer. You can use either the free version or the professional version. Just check out their licensing terms. You're going to then need Trimble SketchUp Professional. I suggest 2015 or newer. That's what I'm going to be using. You can use older versions, but you want a professional to be able to save the file types that we're looking for today. And then you may also want to have Visual Studio 2015. There is a community version which you can access. Don't be worried, you don't have to be a programmer in these videos. It's just the preferred environment that I like to edit my scripts in, and I prefer to work with the C# programming language. But again, you don't really need to be much of a programmer. This probably isn't a mandatory to have, as there is a built-in environment, but just something worth trying out is Visual Studio. Now, what we plan to do today is basically create a new Unity 3D project, and then we're going to import this 3D model template Unity package. And you're going to want to email me at the email address there to get a hold of that, and that's going to include some basic camera movement things for rotating and zooming, as well as a ground level to get you started. And then we have basically a 3D environment. We're then going to save and import a SketchUp model for us to work with and be able to view our 3D model there within our game environment. Then we'll publish this as a desktop application, which will create an executable that you can easily share with your friends so they can walk through and navigate your model without having to have a specialized CAD viewer. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right on in. All right, to start out, after I have Unity 3D installed, it'll usually create a Unity projects folder within your documents folder. Now, I have also created a subfolder called asset packages, and this is where I'm putting that Unity package file that you're going to email me for that I explained at the very beginning in the introduction. And then here, the main project files and things will actually be stored here. So there's asset packages behind, and there's that file, and then the projects we create will be in the Unity projects folder. All right, so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and fire up Unity 3D, and this is going to open up the editor environment. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a new project. I'm going to call this Construction Fun. All right, so we'll just go ahead and say create the project. Now, you don't have to add any assets or anything like that because all of that's going to be in the import package that we bring in. So once the new project's created, the editor will open up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to Assets, and we're going to say Import Package, Custom Package. So then we'll just go ahead and go to that specific folder. So there's my Documents Unity Projects, Asset Packages, and there's that .unity package file. So I'll just go ahead and open that up. And what it's going to do is it's going to prompt you to select all the different files and things that you want to import. And you're just going to say OK to all of this because it's going to bring in everything you need to basically just start within a basic navigation and viewing environment. So once that's all imported here, we'll actually open up the main scene. When you create a new project by default, at the upper left-hand corner, you'll see that there's this untitled scene. Scenes in the game environment basically are exactly that. You might have different levels or different scenes that you're working with. We don't want to work with this untitled scene, so what we're going to do is we're going to say File and Open Scene. Within this project, so now you see Unity Projects, Construction Fun is the project that we created, and it goes in the Assets folder, and there's this Scenes folder, and we're going to open up main scene.unity. So when we open that up, that will get rid of that other scene that we have. And here is the scene that came in from that import package that we just brought in. I have a ground environment here, which is pretty large. It'll handle a pretty decent size construction model that you bring in, and you can adjust this. I won't cover that too much here, but you can change the size within the inspector. But then there's a couple things in here. The main controller, which is basically the main controller is just an empty game object, which is basically like the master and commander of your whole game. And you see here that I've got a script that is actually running the first person camera as well as my God camera, which is kind of more like my CAD navigation. Now, what I've got here then are in the object tree are my different objects that I have in the model. I have a directional light, which actually lights my scene. I've got the ground object here. I've got the God camera object, which is a kind of a prefab, an asset that's got lots of scripts and things. You can tweak some of this. I've preset a lot of this, so it should be pretty good to go. As well as this, you probably don't need to modify this too much. And that's the whole point, is that basically I've created a very rudimentary starting point for you, that if you press this play button up here, it's actually going to mock up running the game. And if you hold down your middle mouse button, it'll actually act like you're panning. Holding down the right mouse button is acting like you're zooming, or rotating. And then scrolling your middle mouse will zoom you in and out. And so basically what I've done is I've created a very basic environment where you can easily navigate just like you're in a CAD viewer. If you just use raw Unity, this doesn't actually come out like this. So I had to bring some great scripts that I found online. And so I'll just quickly reference this here. There's this mouse orbit zoom code that I found. And this is what's really great about the Unity community, is that there are a ton of developers that share stuff. And you can also buy certain assets and certain code through their store. But basically, when we come back in here, you have that starting point. Now, I'll give you one other trick. If you hold or just quickly press F on your keyboard, that now puts you into a first-person mode. So if you move the arrow keys on your keyboard, that's going to actually move you forward, left and right, and then even spacebar will jump if you had objects on the ground. Now, I'll warn you, I have not built in boundaries on the edge of the ground, so if you run off the edge of the ground, you're pretty much going to fall and die. And then you'll have to just kill the application. So this is pretty much the basics. If you hit F, it'll bring you back, and then we can just press the play button here, and then that stops. So at a very rudimentary level, you now have created a game environment that has navigations and everything built in. And the next steps are really to just import your model from SketchUp, and that way you can actually build your game and navigate through it.
So here within Trimble SketchUp, I have imported a house from the warehouse. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to Export 3D Model. And you can choose the export file type. I would suggest either using Collada or FBX. Let's go ahead and try FBX in this case. And then what we want to do is go to Options, and we want to make sure all of the surfaces and everything, including the texture maps, are exported. We also want to swap this YZ coordinate because Unity is a left-handed model coordinate system versus right-handed like in typical BIM or CAD applications. And so we'll just go ahead and say OK, and then we'll export that. That's going to then create an FBX file as well as a folder. So if we go inside of our folder structure here, the folder structure has basically these texture maps, and we're going to bring those in because sometimes Unity won't map those automatically for you. So if we go back here and we go in Unity to Assets, Import New Asset, we'll select the FBX file, and then that will import that in. And we now see a prefab here, which is our simple house. Now I'm just going to simply drag and drop that into the model scene. And you'll see here that some of the texture colors actually have come across, which is good, but some of the texture maps have not. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the materials folder here, and then what I'll do is I'll actually go back to this folder, and we'll select basically these images, and we'll just drag them into that folder there. And so now what I can do is I can actually just select on, for instance, say the stone veneer. And what I can do is I can just grab and drag this to the texture maps, and then what it'll do is it'll actually map that on there. So now you can see that the texture looks appropriate. Now this is kind of unfortunate that you need to go through and do this manually, but it is possible for you to map that if you need to, and so you just continue to do that to whatever level that you want. So let's select another one here, ground cover, and we'll just go ahead and choose that map. And you can map that all out, and once that's all set, basically if we run this game, we now have our 3D model and we can navigate around in this, which is pretty cool. And then if we do F key, we now are in first person mode, and we can navigate up to that model. And notice we can fly through the model, like go through the walls and everything. And that's because we haven't set the colliders on this particular model. So if you want to be blocked from actually, when you walk into something, you kind of hit the wall and you stop, then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and change that. So let's hit F key to get back there and exit out. If you select back on the model, so if we go to Assets, select on that prefab, there is this Generate Colliders over here in the Inspector view. So there's a Generate Colliders, and then what you can do is you can say Apply. And then what that's going to do is that's going to create colliders on that model. So when you actually now walk through the model, let's play that, and you go into first person mode. When we run up to that model, basically on the walls, we should now have a collider. See how I can't go through there? And basically, if I jump, let's see if I can actually get over like a true gaming environment. Can't quite jump over that because of the restrictions on the height. But that's one thing you'll want to consider. Now you can start to look at individual objects and turn colliders off and things like that, but that's a little bit more advanced. So I won't cover that in this video, but that shows you pretty much how you can bring in your model. Now, what you want to do next is you're going to say Build Settings under File menu. So File, Build Settings, and you're going to build a PC application targeted for Windows or whatever. If you're on a Mac, you can do that as well. But let's just go ahead and go to Player Settings. You can pick some of the different settings that you want here, whether it's a full-size game or a resizable window, different screen resolutions and things that you want to set. But essentially what you do is you just go ahead and say build, and what that'll do is it'll prompt you to select a folder. I usually create a build folder in my project, and then inside of there, I'll name the executable and it'll create a subfolder for me there. So I'll just go ahead and replace this. And then what it'll do is it'll actually just create the application. And once this is done, you now have an independent game. I can close out the Unity editor. And so we'll just close that down. We'll save our scenes and we'll save our project. And then we can close down the Unity editor. And so really all we have now is we can just send this executable and folder. And if we just pretty much run this, it'll open up Made with Unity if you're using the free version, but now we have a game environment. So without any extra CAD software or anything like that, I've got an independent viewer for my model, and I can easily send this to anybody. And again, they can just navigate around in this and do everything that we pretty much set. So what's great about this is not only that, hey, you don't have to use a CAD viewer, but you can actually embed text. You can put really cool things in here and make this truly your own environment with your CAD models. And that's what's kind of special about this by bringing it into a gaming environment. So hopefully this was helpful, and I might be able to create some other videos giving you some other tips and tricks on how to take this to another level. All right, thanks guys.